Hi, this is Mike Farah.
And this is Joe Stackhouse.
We're here from Windows7Forums.com to discuss with you remote desktop connections and remote desktop protocol. Many of you may be wondering about remote desktop connections and remote desktop protocol. Remote desktop connection and remote desktop protocols are ways to connect to your computer remotely. And by using these methods, you can remote connect to entire networks or to your home computer or work computer. As time has gone on, we've seen this technology advance, and there's many different types of remote desktop connections, and we're going to go through exactly what this is all about. Joe?
Well, I think we could start with Microsoft's implementation of a remote desktop connection, and we can preview since it's been built in their operating system since, Windows 2000, or is it Windows XP?
I
I think
believe
2000.
2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're running on Windows 7 here. We're in a virtual machine. And why don't we go through the process of actually enabling remote desktop connections, first of all?
Right. I'll go ahead and do that for you.
All right.
To enable remote desktop connections, first we have to understand what exactly is going on here. We have a host machine and a guest machine. The guest machine is in a virtual machine, which could be another computer in your room or your house, but it's basically just running on this computer for demonstration purposes. And it's on our same network here using bridged networking. To enable Microsoft's remote desktop connection and remote desktop protocol, you would want to type in start orb search remote desktop, and you'll see a whole bunch of options here. Remote desktop connection will allow you to connect to another computer, and allow remote access to your computer is what you want to take a look at, because this will give you the option to allow yourself and other people who are authorized to do so to connect into your computer remotely.
And it's important to note that you have to have Windows XP Professional or Vista, I do believe Professional or higher, for you to allow remote desktop connections to your computer. The home versions will have the client to connect to other computers, but they do not have the functionality to allow computers to connect to them.
That's correct. Now, if we take a look here, you'll see that we already have the remote desktop connection active, but by default it is don't allow connections to this computer. We also have remote assistance. We should probably talk about the difference between remote assistance and remote desktop. You can solicit remote assistance from someone on another computer, and this is usually done through a managed interface. Someone will ask you to send them a remote assistance request, and you'll go into that by sending them this remote assistance request. It's not used that often. It is used sometimes in technical support, but if you're doing this specifically to connect into a computer at work or at home, you want to have the remote desktop function available. There's three options here. The obvious option is not to allow connections to this computer at all. The second option is to allow connections from computers running any version of remote desktop, and this is less secure because it doesn't implement network level authentication, and older versions of Windows will not be allowed to connect in, or will not be allowed to use. You will not be allowed to use this function with older versions. You'll want to basically use probably the more secure version where if you're in Vista Service Pack 2 or Windows 7, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. If you do run into a problem, you can always lower the security, but it's generally recommended that you leave the security at more secure. You can also choose the types of users, what type of users you want, and in a server environment, you can actually use Active Directory as well. As you can see, Mike is the admin account that's logged in here, and I already have access. But if I wanted to add additional users, I would type in their usernames here. Or if I was on a Windows Server domain, I would type in the company name / and the name of the user. and that would allow them to use remote access. Now, one of the prerequisites for using remote desktop is that you have to have a password set. And to set a password, you go to Start, Control Panel, System and Security. Oh, I'm sorry. User accounts and family settings, user accounts. Then you want to actually set a password if one is not set. If you don't have a password set already, you cannot use this service whatsoever. Now, this service is mostly geared towards local area networks, but there are ways in which you can allow this service to be run over the internet, which are quite complex, and it's the reason why an entire industry of remote desktop services have been offered by various corporations. Joe, do you want to go into that at all?
Yeah, the first two methods we're going to show you here, one of them being Microsoft's RDP, and then we'll also show you VNC server as well. They're a little more complicated for home users to set up access to a machine. If you're not very technical, it requires logging into your router, setting up port forwarding, having to deal with your dynamic IP address since your address from your ISP constantly changes, and we'll also talk about ways to combat that. Why don't we go ahead and show a demo of you remoting into your virtual machine using Microsoft's solution.
Right. So remember, we have everything set up here, and it's all set up to go. So I'm in my host machine now.
Just go ahead and minimize the virtual machine. That way they get...
I'll minimize the virtual machine here. And what I want to do is, again, go to Start, Orb, Search, Remote Desktop. Now, I can go to Remote Desktop Connection here and launch the same thing, or I can actually type in MSTSC and launch the same thing. But now you might be wondering, well, how am I going to connect, or where do I connect? How do I find out where to connect to? Well, we have to go back to our machine that we're connecting into and find the local area network address. And this is where it gets a little complicated. If the NetBIOS name or the host name of the local computer is not available to you, you're going to want to try to find this IP address, and it's usually the best idea to do so. So you go to the Start Orb. Again, this is on the machine that you're connecting into. You type in CMD and... Excuse me, Joe. You type in ipconfig. You want to go to the local area connection, Ethernet adapter, and find your IP version 4 IP address, which is 192, in this case, .168.1.101. So
now I'll show you another way to do this as well if you're a little leery of the command prompt. If you actually find your connection down here in your system tray, you can actually view the status of the connection, and you'll see under details your IPv4 address.
Yes. Well, that's an easier way to go about it if you don't like using the command prompt. So we'll minimize the guest system, and again we can go to remote desktop, which is probably the easier way if you're not familiar with this, or you can simply type in MSTSC, and that will launch the same application. Obviously, you type in 192.168.1.101.
And let's talk about some of the options before we actually connect.
Sounds like a good idea.
All right, so if we expand the options here, you'll see all different tabs across here. Each one of them contains different options. The display, you can set the desktop size, not recommended. I really recommend the full screen. You can set the quality. If you're on a low-speed connection, you can lower the quality of the callers on the system. Local resources, you can share your sound so you hear the sound from the remote system. You can also share recording devices such as microphones. You can also share your printer, so you can print to your local printer from the remote machine. The clipboard, so you can copy and paste text and files between the machines. You can also share your drives, like your hard drives. So once you connect, you'll see your hard drive in the remote system. We'll enable the hard drive for now. and the printers, so we should see both of those when we connect. There's a couple other tabs here, programs. You can have it launch a program upon connection. That's hardly ever used, but you could have it automatically log in, launch Excel, for instance. Experience. This is a good tab. If you're on a low-speed connection, you can pick the low option. It will disable some of the themes and visual styles that Windows uses. Or if you're on a fast connection like we are here, you can choose to include everything, including the desktop background. Advanced. Server authentication. Most home users will not see this, but you can choose the option to go ahead and warn me if there's a security authentication error. Do you prompt the user, basically ask you, do you want to connect, yes or no? Or you can say connect without warning me, or do not connect unless it's absolutely secured. Connect from anywhere. This is part of terminal services on a server product. This is a terminal services gateway, basically. This is the way corporations use remote desktop behind firewalls. The users would connect from home to the gateway and then get referred to their desktop machine or another machine within the enterprise seamlessly by using a gateway. This is stuff that IT admins would use in a business environment. All right, Mike, I think it's ready to connect.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and connect into the machine, and I'll try to demonstrate some of the features and functionality that Joe just showed you. As you see, we're being asked if we trust this remote connection, and we'll have to enter our password, remember, on the guest machine.
Now the machine on the other end, as soon as Mike connects, will actually black out back to the login screen and show that somebody is remotely connected.
That's correct. Obviously, we're being asked for a certificate here if we trust it. It's not from a certificate authority, which is a CA. If you have a certificate authority server, you can issue certificates for this, but that's more of an enterprise environment. And so here I am now in the guest computer, and I'll show you how we have shared certain things. The computer that we've connected from is called Solid. It's my main machine. And we can access the C drive because we shared it out, remember, in the options. And we can access it right there. I'm trying to see if we have the printer because we do have a print device. But
Did you notice, Mike, the arrow actually stayed enabled because we picked the highest connection speed?
That's correct. And as you can see, yep, we do have a redirected Canon MX850 series printer, which can be printed to from this machine, which is not connected to this machine at all, and will in fact disappear from this machine once we disconnect. And we also have the ability to file share, and when we do that, we want to just go to the top of the screen here. A very simple method of doing that is, let me just take a very small file if I can. We'll try one of these. Copy. And we can paste it right. Well, that didn't actually work.
There can be a number of reasons this doesn't work. Usually it's because the map drive did not correctly go over. There it goes. It just
there it goes. Yeah. There we go. So there you have the same file that we had on the other machine. Of course, there's no extension for it, but it's a 4 megabyte file. And that copy and paste function does actually work forward and backwards. So if you have something on the machine you're remoting into, you can move it back to the machine that you're on. So this is very good for work, connecting from work to home, or vice versa in that regard. And this is a free option. Now, the problem is you're connected through a local area network. So you're basically, the computer that I'm on here is on the same network that I'm on here. So unless I'm on a VPN, which is a virtual private network, if you imagine a network as a cloud of computers and network 2 as another cloud of computers, the VPN will connect both together. And this can be done router to router, software to router, or software to software VPN. Many corporations employ VPN. However, in this case, we don't have a VPN. So there's ways to get around this, and they're quite complex, but I'll go ahead and show you a few ways. The one thing you have to do first on your network is identify your IP address, and this is your wide area network IP address. So you can go to Google and type CMyIP, which is a very basic way of looking up your wide area network or internet IP address. And of course you see here that this is my IP address. Now, there is a service, because this IP address will change all the time. It will change so much, in fact, that there's no way to predictably and reliably be able to connect into this IP address all the time. So you need to find a way to always be able to connect into whatever this turns into, because it will change and your ISP changes it all the time, your internet service provider. You'll want to find a service called dyndns or dyndns.org, and this service will allow you to interact with your router in order to attach a name to whatever this number becomes. So, for instance, this number may become 67.86.226.23 instead of 13. And if that happens, you want a name associated with that, a host name. And that could be mike.dnsalias.org. This service allows for that, and it's absolutely free. Again, that's dyndns.com. You have to set this up in your router, however, or run their client in order to make sure that it works. They have
It's also worth mentioning some ISPs, for a small monthly fee, will give you a static IP address, but it's usually an additional benefit. You will pay a premium for that service.
That's correct. And usually, you at least for on the East Coast of the United States, if you have Optimum Online, I believe, and Verizon, for static IP, you do need to have a network technician come out to your home, install a special router with a MAC address to set that all up, and it's converting your residential account into a business account in many cases, and sometimes it's a little bit more of a headache than it's worth. But
yes.
Unless you're really using this for business. So what you want to look at is the router. And to connect into your router, you first have to find, for the most part on a home network, it is usually almost always the default gateway. To identify the default gateway, we once again go back to the Windows command processor, or a command prompt. Some people still call it the DOS prompt for some reason. And you type in ipconfig once again. Now, you want to find the default gateway, and you can do it the same way that Joe showed you before under network settings. The default gateway here is listed with a IP version 6 IP address that we'll just ignore, and we want to look at the number here, and in most cases it's 192.168.1.1 or 1.0 on the home network. So we can take this number, and we can either take it that way, copy and paste it, or we can just plug it in here, and we'll wind up connecting into our router. Now, when we connect into our router, we need a username and password. If you don't know the username and password to your router, the username is usually admin on Cisco Linksys routers, and the password is actually admin on Cisco Linksys routers. Sometimes it's password1 as the password, but if you don't know that information, well, you're going to have a problem, and this isn't going to work for you at all. And this is why there's corporations making mega bucks to charge for these type of services. So,
and for those of you users that are wondering, wow, this all looks so technical, towards the end of this video, we're going to show you some simpler methods of doing remote access. We're just starting with some of the harder methods here.
Absolutely. So this is the interface of a Cisco Linksys router. And what you want to look at is DDNS, and I just have to get my mouse pointer back. I don't know where it went. Oh, there it is. I seem to be having... Actually, let me get out of this area here.
Just do it through the virtual machine directly.
Yeah, because we lost the pointer. And
That's it. Happens.
Yeah. So you'll see this here, and you're going to want to go here. Now you'll create an account with dyndns, okay? And there's another service too. It depends on your router, but almost all routers support this Dyn DNS.
Pretty much
So,
any router after 2005 has some kind of DDNS service in it. So.
yeah, and in fact, the Linksys Cisco Linksys routers, I believe, are certified. They actually certify them to work with this service. Although, as Joe was speaking about before with me, sometimes it'll actually time out. If your IP address doesn't change, you'll actually lose your account in some instances. So this is all very complex, but what you're doing is just assigning a name to this number that always changes. So you can always remote desktop into this name, okay? So that's how you would be able to remote in over the internet into your computer that you want to use Microsoft Remote Desktop Connection or Microsoft Remote Desktop Protocol. Now, because it is a protocol, you also need to open a port for this protocol. And in this router, you open ports through what's called applications and gaming. However, many routers differ, and you may have a difficult time doing this, and if you do, that's why we have the simpler options that are coming soon. Applications and gaming are over here. Now, what you need to do is open a port. As you see, we have a port for FTP, which is File Transfer Protocol, one for VNC, which is another service we're going to talk to you about soon. And we have some things for Skype here to make sure that Skype always works pretty well. And we also have RDC. Now, RDC is the Remote Desktop Connection or Remote Desktop Protocol, and the port is always 3389 TCP, external and internal. And of course, we route it to 101, and we want to enable it on our router. Once we do this, and once we have the dynamic DNS functioning, we should be able to connect in to our computer from a remote location using this service. So there's a demonstration of how to do that. Joe, did you want to move on to VNC? Although it's quite similar, VNC does have some superior capabilities in many ways to Microsoft Remote Desktop.
All right, we can talk about real VNC. That's one of the most popular distributions, I think.
Okay. Do you want me to just navigate to that page? And
yeah, let's just pull that up.
Okay, so obviously we go to Google, Bing, whatever, Yahoo, type in real VNC. Real VNC was actually, it's called real VNC because it actually claims to be the first one that was ever developed. Who knows if that's the case, whatever. It doesn't matter, it's just really good. The other ones are
I've used
kind
real
of...
VNC for years now. So
Yeah, the Enterprise Edition is excellent. I've deployed it to over probably 200 computers. And when it works well, it works really well. It's just a pain to configure, very similar to the Microsoft Remote Desktop. But the refresh rate of the screen, the ability to easily manipulate the computer, even if you're on a slow DSL connection or dial-up connection, is very fast. It automatically buffers your connection and changes the transfer rate based on your connection speed and the perceived connection speed. And,
now the personal edition is free, Mike. The enterprise you have to pay for, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. The personal edition is extremely limited, but it is free. The enterprise edition is absolutely well worth its weight in gold. I mean, there's chat, there's printing, there's integrated session security, system authentication, one port, HTTP, and VNC. What this means is that you can actually set up a web page on the same port. So if you have this running, say, mike.dyndns.org, and you're on port 5900, well, you would just type that into the browser, and you could actually get to your computer right on the browser. And you could actually manipulate your system right through your web browser using Java. There's also proxy support, desktop scaling, cross-platform interoperability, file transfer, integrated address book, which can actually be deployed onto a network share. And there's also the deployment tool. So if you're on like a Windows server or Windows network, you can deploy this to a whole bunch of computers that are on a domain very easily and manage updates as well.
I do believe the enterprise version, the screen refresh rate is much better than the free version as well.
Absolutely, yeah, it's incredibly better. And many of these features were uh, came way before Microsoft even thought about adding them to remote desktop. I mean, they were just there, they worked, and they've gotten better and better every release. So there's 64-bit versions and 32-bit versions now, and it's a great program on a managed network. But if
And it's
you're not
cross-platform. You can use it on Linux, Unix, Mac, everything.
absolutely. Now, the one thing you won't like about this service is that it's extremely managed. You have to set up the firewall. You have to set up the port forwarding. You have to create the dynamic DNS host name. You have to do a lot of networking to get this thing working across the internet. If you use it internally, you don't really have to worry about any of this stuff. But if you use it, if you want to try to use this to like connect from work to home or home to work, this is going to be something that's tricky to get working for you, and that is why we have all of these basically unmanaged, easy to use solutions that we're going to discuss next. And maybe I'll hand it off now to you, Joe, to discuss some of those.
All right. Which one do you want to discuss first, Mike?
Well, I was actually thinking about bringing out Live Mesh, because that actually is one of them too. But as far as a demonstration, I'm not sure it's possible we could do that. But if you want to go over to, I think the best one to discuss would probably be Teamviewer.
Yeah, Teamviewer is really popular. I use it a lot. I know a lot of people that use it.
All right.
So let's open up Teamviewer's page and talk about that. Teamviewer is absolutely free for non-commercial use. Commercial versions of the product do cost, as any good remote solution does these days. That's how these companies are making all the money. They add a lot of good features, and you pay for it. But for non-commercial use, Teamviewer, the way that it gets around the whole having to know your IP address and all of that, and having to set up port forwarding, it's simply, once you install it, if you install it in unattended mode, which means you can remote into the remote desktop without having to accept any, yes, I'll allow this person to connect or anything like that, but it will present you with an ID, and I think we can show an example of that. It's actually installed on this virtual machine here. Mike, you want to go ahead and do that?
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and launch Teamviewer on this machine. We've already installed it, and mind you, the only thing you have to do to really install it is just click on this button to install it. You get some options about whether or not you want to run it as a service or not. Running it as a service means it runs all the time. And you have an option to either, just have it run whenever you turn it on or whatever. Otherwise, it'll run even when you're not logged into Windows, unless you explicitly turn it off. But here's Teamviewer. Once you have it installed, turn it on. We're ready to connect using a secure connection. We have a user ID, and we have a password for remote control. Now, if someone else, if you give this information to someone else, and they also have Teamviewer, they'll have no problem whatsoever connecting into your computer and basically taking remote control over it. And this can include you yourself. You can go, if you can't make it to work and your management allows you to run this on your computer, you can leave this running on your system. As long as you know your user ID and your password, you can connect into your computer and pretty much use that computer absolutely free. But remember, that would be commercial use, so you would actually have to pay for the software. So it's a little bit, you can't really do things like that.
You want to show a demo of this working? I can connect to that right now.
Yeah, go right ahead. So Joe's connecting in right now.
I've got the ID and the password, and I've connected into Mike's virtual machine there, running Teamviewer.
Right.
If you notice down here in the corner, it actually shows that I'm connected.
Right.
I have all sorts of features. I can also do voice over IP audio. I can do video. I can chat. You can do conference calls. They do charge you. The conference call feature allows you to actually have landline telephone people connected and conference as they're seeing the screen. There's all sorts of options there. File transfer, as I said. It's a pretty decent little product.
Yeah, and mind you, Joe is connected all the way from Indiana, connecting right to this system within a system in New York. So this is a pretty incredible, and he's on wireless as well. So it's a pretty incredible thing that he's doing right here. There's no ports being opened, no firewall modifications, and he's just in the machine. He has full control over the machine. And of course, if myself as the owner wanted to take control back, I can just move the mouse around and kick him off if I wanted to. But this is excellent for group projects as well, or just accessing one of your machines from a remote location.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect now.
Okay.
There we go. And you'll see the notice that actually says it's free for non-commercial only.
Right. And this also, you don't want to lie to them because they will somehow probably figure it out, and it's just not ethical to do so. This is excellent software. It costs a lot of money to develop, so you don't want to be messing around with screwing over this company. So
one of the other features that this one for me, I'm a very technical person, and to have a free client like this that supports the VPN option is excellent. It's amazing how easily this VPN, you can also connect using the VPN or start a VPN once you're connected between the two computers. So that's pretty amazing for free software.
Right. And of course this is a software-to-software VPN taking one network and connecting it to another and allowing for file shares and all sorts of different interactions as if they're one local area network. Now, we also have another feature called Partner List with Teamviewer. And Partner List allows you to create an account. You create an account, and I'll sign in right here because I've already created one with a username and password. And you can see all the computers on your list, and you can add as many as you want. And when you add one, it just asks you for the ID, the alias, and the password. So you can name it whatever you want, put in the ID, put in the password, you can add notations, you can create groups. And this is basically an address book of computers that you can remote into at any time. And it's very useful software. So Joe, I think we pretty much covered it on TeamViewer, huh?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good sum of the. I think most home users will find TeamViewer very easy to use. There's one more thing, I guess, Mike, I could show. If you're trying to help grandma out with a computer issue, or maybe your uncle that doesn't know very much about computers, they do have a version on the TeamViewer site, and I use this a lot with people. Oops. But if you go back to teamviewer.com, Mike, and I want to show this real quick because it's very useful. This is very useful if you want to help somebody out for like a one-time session. But if you go to teamviewer.com and look at the download tab, there's a specific download. I think it's the second one on the page here. The full version is the one you'd want to download if you want to access your computer constantly. So the ID never changes, the password never changes. You'd set it up as a service, as Mike had said earlier. But if you scroll down on the page a little more, you'll find the quick support version. And the way that this works right there, for the instant customer, TeamViewer Quick Support. If you tell your uncle to go to this page, click the download right there, the download version 6 whatever, he'll simply get a download that he can execute. He doesn't have to save it. He can run it, and he'll immediately get the screen right here that Mike's showing you, your ID and your password. He would give that to you. You would run TeamViewer and connect right to him. And the cool thing is, once they close TeamViewer, it doesn't save any installation information. It might save a couple registry keys, but at that point, they got to use TeamViewer, but they didn't have to install anything. They don't have to worry about you accessing their computer later, and so forth. So it's a quick, easy way to provide tech support to people that only you just want to be able to click on a link and hit run, and that's literally all they have to do, and read you the ID and the password. Right.
Now, if you're an information technology professional and you're really serious about providing remote support, this is an excellent option because just like with software called CrossLoop, which we might discuss next, you can actually brand your quick support client with your own company name and things like this. Well, I think we should just do one more thing with TeamViewer and just show the price for
Yes.
the commercial version. Um, Now, this may seem expensive, but if once we look at stuff coming up, you're going to see that it really actually isn't that expensive comparatively, relatively. We have to put these things into perspective and remember that if we didn't have this software, it's very possible we would be altering thousands of routers and going around massively doing enormous amount of networking, spending tens of thousands of dollars in doing that if you're a large corporation. So, a lifetime license with reoccurring, without reoccurring fees, I think with lifetime updates as well as branding, would only cost you around $2,700. And when you start looking at the other platforms that we're going to look at, you're going to see, wow, this actually isn't that bad.
And that
Um,
$2,700 actually includes 3 workstations here, as you can see.
right. So you're able to, Joe, but let me clarify that with you. When you say 3 workstations, what are you talking about? Concurrent?
Number of remote users that you can install or computers that you can control. If you see that, that price includes 3 there.
It's not unlimited?
I don't think so. Each additional installation there. See, look at that. It is unlimited. I'm sorry. The first tier, it's $139 additional per computer. Okay.
Okay. So
I'm sorry.
this is actually
Concurrent sessions is what that
right,
is.
right.
Okay.
So that right. Okay, so yeah, we want to just make that clear. So if you are an information technology professional, remote support technician, whatever, you definitely want to take a look at this because the other option I believe that's practical might be cross-loop. We're gonna probably go to that one now. Joe?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll bring up the website and take a look at it.
All right.
Crossloop, I don't know if we should mention, Mike, but Crossloop is also not just a remote desktop ability to help out somebody with an issue, but they also offer professionals on their website, which one of you're one of them, Mike, and so am I. You can actually ask people and pay them a fee through this service to help you with a remote issue. Or you can just download the remote client for your own use. That's up to you.
Right. Now, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's 3 different versions of this software. Okay, there's the free version. This requires 2 people involved. There's one person on one end and another person on another end, and that's all there is to it. There's not much else. There's no remote access or controlling things automatically. There has to be 2 people, one person on one computer, another person on the other end, just like picking up a telephone. But when that's the free option. When you look at the remote access option, this is geared not really towards support, but mostly towards managing multiple computers. And when we look at this, we see that we have features like unlimited remote access to customers. Of course, they call it customers, but you could use this typically to connect to your own systems. Unlimited file transfer. There you have an Android application where you can connect in. You can access your computers remotely with one click. Screen sharing.
The pricing doesn't look too bad either, but I can tell you the Crossloop client, the program that runs to allow the connections, is not as robust as some of the other solutions.
No, it certainly is not as robust as TeamViewer, which we're actually using now to do this webcast. And it's not really there. It's like a derivative of, I think, Tight VNC or some application that they didn't even write at one point. I hate to say that.
Just like TeamViewer, it gives the other user on the other end an ID. They have to hit connect. Then you have to put in the ID, hit connect, and they have to accept the connection.
Right. This is basically a very basic sort of remote access thing. For the price, though, you get what you pay for, kind of thing, with the price. But they also have the Crossloop Pro, and this is what information technology professionals would use. You can have a widget, sell software and earn commissions, kind of getting gimmicky there.
I actually use the Android app. It's pretty nice. You can actually connect through your Android to another computer and do remote assistance. The only thing there is the size
Screen.
of the screen. But
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I imagine the screen size there might be an issue. That
Yeah.
Android app thing sounds
But
a
it does
little.
work on the fly. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, you need to help somebody, and you have your Android on you, it is a good option.
Yeah, I guess so. I personally, my Android, the screen, I'm trying to text people, I can't do it.
I've used
But
it in a pinch.
yeah, there's no advertising here. There's remote reboot and reconnect, and this is more of the annual subscription. You pay this annual charge for this service, and you can function on their website as a cross-loop professional. And if you want to look at an example of how those services are sold, do you want me to go to yours, Joe?
Go ahead and
Show
go to
people.
yours.
All right, we'll go to mine real quick. This is mine. I barely use this thing, but I'm here with my Windows 7 experience, Vista XP, viruses, trojans, blue screens of death, errors, malware, software repair. Obviously, I give you my whole background on what I can help you with if I can. And there's a certification that you can take and link your LinkedIn and Twitter profiles and so on and so forth. And so, this is part of what this is. But Crossloop is a very basic option, and you may find that if you try to get help from professionals on Crossloop, they're going to use Crossloop as a proxy to install another sort of remote support protocol if Crossloop isn't good enough, and that's something that I've personally witnessed. That sometimes it's just not good enough. It's too slow. The screen's not rendering as fast enough, and you need to install something else instead. Usually, sometimes that becomes Teamviewer. Other times it can become another commercial product that we may discuss next.
And these professionals, I mean, on the Crossloop site, they are there to make money. I mean, usually they will charge you for their services. So.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So if you have a virus, you can't get rid of it, you're in a pinch, you can go onto there, look for somebody that's good with antivirus or removing viruses, and you can find a professional. But do know that these professionals are not Crossloop employees. They are people like Mike and myself. So you'll have to deal with somebody that's charging you through Crossloop. Crossloop acts as the proxy for the payment method and all that good stuff. That way you don't get shafted, and at the same time you can look at the reviews of the professional. You can see, hey, he's helped 200 people already. He has a good review. He can probably fix my problem.
Right. All right. So next, I guess we'll head over and discuss Logmein, and this is something you know a lot about, specifically, I think, Joe. And
I used to use it a lot. I've kind of shifted to TeamViewer, but yeah, Logmein. It's pretty nice. I mean, you can install it on a system. The thing I like about it is it has a web page. Once you log back into it, it'll list all the computers you've installed Logmein on. So you have a nice little address book already built into the website, and you can click on the computers from there to control them. It works pretty well. I think the pricing is probably a little more than TeamViewer, if I remember right.
I'm trying to look for the pricing here. If we try to buy Logmein Pro, let's say, yeah, it's about, if you want it on 10 computers, it's $44.90 per computer, $449 per year. So that's a baseline price. If this was for, 10 computers, say a small office, very small office. Central. They have a central account subscription where you can deploy Logmein, a bunch of their other products for free remote support, remote to computers, network with VPN connectivity, the $299 a year. But there may be limits to that functionality. And they certainly have many products, many of which are a bit confusing at this point. I mean, they have pretty much over almost a dozen different types of products. So this is there certainly is a solution. They have a free version, in fact, but as far as what is offered here and what the quality of it is, I'm not really too sure, and it looks to be a little bit on the pricey side.
Yeah. But if you're a user, again, if you've tried TeamViewer, you didn't like it, you could try Logmein. I do believe it is free for non-commercial use for up to 16 computers. That's what it says right there. Yes. So.
Oh, well, see, anytime I've worked for a client, I've usually uninstalled Logmein right away and
Right.
installed real VNC. But that's just me. Anyway, sorry, Logmein. Let me see.
I'm not familiar with that new product, although I've seen it, the Hamachi product there. I've
I
seen
have.
a couple of computers.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with their product line, at all. But let me go to my PC because this is the one that is used heavily. It's extraordinarily expensive, but at the same time, it's received remarkable reviews. It's created by a very renowned company, Citrix. They create virtualization solutions.
You've probably heard the commercials on radio or TV. They do lots of marketing.
Right. And I've actually used their services on occasion, and it really does sort of meet its obligation. I mean, it's fast. It's probably faster than Teamviewer. The connection is unparalleled from what I can understand. It's just extremely expensive. And when you go to their webpage to find the pricing, well, you'll see they have a Go to My PC, which offers one user with one or more computers with access, a small team that needs to administer access to multiple users, and then they have corporate, which is larger teams that need invoiced billing. So they give you the invoice billing in there. But if you want to find the price, you got to like dig down deep into their website, and then we start seeing, oh boy, here it comes.
$100 a year.
To connect into one computer, it's $100 a year. To connect into 21 or more, you have to contact sales, and that's just for the baseline product. 20 computers is $199 a month. For some people, that's rent. For Go to My PC Pro, remember this is with some administrative capabilities. 50 computers is $497.50 a month. That's 2 to 50 users with one administrator, and we're talking $5,000 a year. And then, of course, if you want to use the corporate version, we don't even know the price. You just have to call sales and have a sales guy, try to sell you the Brooklyn Bridge, which all salespeople tend to do.
Right. If you're an IT admin and you're looking 20 plus computers, you might start looking into a terminal server at your site.
Right. You want to start looking into buying a Windows Server license instead of using this crazy, starting to pay $2,000 a year. You could buy a server every year.
And that brings up another thing, Mike. What about security? IT admins, you'll see people working in the office that just go to My PC or TeamViewer and they throw it on their computer at work. And especially if they have admin rights, they can install whatever they want, which I strongly recommend admins to start taking that away, but that's a whole other story. So the problem is these products, they work over your normal channels of viewing web pages. They use the same technology as you would to go visit your bank website, for instance, HTTPS. So it's hard for admins to block these programs, and there's no real good foolproof way to do it.
Right.
But I think most IT admins, if they're facing this problem, if they would simply offer their users a way to work from home in the first place, they wouldn't have this problem. And me and you were talking about this earlier, that working remotely to your workplace is kind of frowned upon. It's kind of taboo at this point. People don't like it. People don't trust it. Well, will they really be working? But, a lot of times, especially being an employee, it really helps you out to have access to your computer at work.
Right. I think I made an analogy to you earlier about companies being reluctant to allow this unless there's some sort of emergency or a volcano explodes in the middle of New York City, and therefore then all of a sudden you're allowed to use remote access. But and those are the ones that think they're up on the technology, and that's very common. I think the problem basically is that you're identifying is that this software, these types of software were designed to get around firewalls. They were designed to be easy to install, use, and connect. So you're not going to be able to stop someone very easily from connecting to home if they want to from a business network, or connecting from a business from home to a business network. So you have to really establish some sort of acceptable use agreement in the workplace. You have to have some level of network security, and you have to have some trust in your employees that hey, maybe once in a while they can work from home, and maybe they'll be more productive if they can. I mean, there's been plenty of times where, if you think about it, absenteeism in the workplace is like the leading cause of lost revenue for businesses in the case of workforce development. So, I mean, there's workers missing work, and maybe they're not feeling well, they can't get into work, and they're not allowed to pursue their work from home, and maybe they really want to, or maybe someone gets caught connecting to their computer from home because they need to use a product that they don't have at work, and this is because the employer is simply unaware that their software is old or whatever. So, I mean, you have that sort of this, ooh, no, remote connect, no, don't do it. All our trade secrets will get sent over to somebody else, and these small businesses tend to think that they're at the center of the universe. But really, most people that work at a business, and if they're there for a year or more, their goal is not to undermine and destroy your entire business. And so the way to allow remote support is to make sure that employees who aren't supposed to get to certain areas on your network can't get to it no matter what. And then you can allow remote support. You can allow for this to take place. And I'm a big proponent of it. I think it would be great.
If you go to your IT department as an employee and say, hey, look, I really need to work from home, and they tell you, well, we can't do it, it's a security risk or whatever, it's mainly because they don't understand the technology or don't understand how to control it.
Or don't want to deal with it.
Or don't want to do it, yes, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Most of the time, they just do not want to take on the liability in case something goes wrong, and this is quite unfortunate because it could increase productivity quite a bit, especially if you're a business owner or on the board of a business. You might want to start thinking about the possibilities of this software. But overall, we've looked at a bunch of these. Do you want to just go into one of the Microsoft solutions real quick? The Live Mesh, which is sort of still beta, right?
I do believe it is. If you want to install it or configure it, we could.
Well, we can show you Live Mesh and show you how to get to it. I think we actually did one on Live Mesh, though.
Live Mesh allows you to log in with your Windows ID, which if you have Windows Live ID, if you have a Hotmail account or anything like that, you probably already have one. And it's a beta product at this point, meaning they're still testing it. They're trying to get it to work good. But it allows you to install this on your computer and access your computer remotely simply by signing in. I think, can't you sign in directly to the Live Mesh web page and then download and connect from there?
That's correct. As a matter of fact, we're going there now. We're at mesh.com, and this is a list of the computers. Now, you have a live desktop. If you hit connect here, you'll see that you can create folders and so on and so forth. And they've actually merged this with SkyDrive, I believe. But
yeah, you can actually share files between the two and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can add PCs and so on and so forth, but it's still in a beta phase, and it's identified Teamviewer in some way, I believe. I'm not sure.
That's interesting. Click that again. Choose a partner to present this application with Teamviewer.
That's interesting.
Oh, I know what that is. All that is because you have an option enabled in TeamViewer right now, Mike. And if you look at it on top of all your windows, I don't know why it's there, but look at the top of Internet Explorer. It lets you share that specific window with other people.
Gotcha.
I don't know why it put one right there in the middle of the mesh thing, but that's what it is.
Yeah,
because it's a window.
Yeah, mesh is basically the same type of concept as the other things, except it pertains to be free, but usually the freer options are not really that good, but they're working on it. And we
I
can't
think
really.
Microsoft is envisioning this product to be anybody that uses Hotmail or whatever might start using this product to access their desktops. And I think it also synchronizes stuff like your favorites. They're trying to get into like an application that everyday users can use to access their other computers and keep their information in sync.
Right. And when we think about this in a way of practicality for home use, I think that this, yeah, it could be very practical for home users as a simple solution. If you're not really too concerned about the connection speed and you've got a fast connection, it shouldn't, it's practical for that purpose. For business, no. Um,
You and I
but
will have to do a video when this product comes out of beta.
Yeah, it's around. There, I think you can get to it through SkyDrive now or something. Because normally this thing doesn't appear anymore, but I don't know why it's here. But anyway, that's a whole nother issue. But I would say that when using each of these products, you consider like what your needs are, because we've gone through a whole plethora of different products, and each one of these offers you have to weigh the drawbacks and benefits of each. And so, like with Real VNC, I see this ultimate advantage of this thing is lightweight, it's super fast, it's great, but at the same time, it's like tremendous amount of management to even get it set up. Once it's set up, you might have some luck keeping it that way, but it's flaky, and there's a lot of networking that needs to go into setting it up. Um, what do you think, Joe, about some of the other services? TeamViewer?
I think TeamViewer is probably, personally for me, probably the recommendation I would give most people at home right now that just wants a good, free way to connect to their computer. All you have to do is carry around your ID, remember your password, and it's fairly good software. If you're a professional, VNC, that seems to work well if you know how to do port forwarding and whatnot. I don't know what your preferences are, Mike, but
Yeah, I mean, my preference for business use right now, if there was no budgetary issue, it would be go to my PC. But Real VNC, I would, in a business environment, I would advocate strongly for that if go to my PC was not an option. Logmein, I would not consider that honestly a serious option, just because I just do not like the software. I just don't like
right.
it. TeamViewer, I think, strikes a fair balance, and that's that. I mean, that can be used in a business setting or residential. But I see TeamViewer as something that would be really good if someone has been doing remote support for a really long time and they want to start moving into the commercial area. They can take that and make it a commercial application. So I would I mean, there's drawbacks and benefits to all of them, but I think TeamViewer really stands out as the best one, and I would agree with you on that. Go to my PC is unparalleled in its features and its functionality, but at the same time, it's really expensive, and it's probably not worth the expense unless you're a major large corporation and you can afford $10,000-$15,000 a year for this.
Well, and if you're a major corporation, you're getting that big, either terminal server or, dare I say, Citrix server. I don't like that product, but terminal server, that is probably the best bet for you to use.
Yeah, terminal service is the one that we haven't demonstrated because it involves Windows Server, and it's very long-winded setup and demonstration. But yeah, when you start to get really, really big, then you want to start looking into terminal server and things like that. But yeah, so far I think we've given a lot of options, and I think these are the options, and there they are.
Yeah. If anybody else has any more suggestions, please leave comments, or if you have questions, please leave comments on the video so we can see those and respond to them.
Yeah, please visit Windows7Forums.com. We will discuss remote support and remote desktop connection with you. Would like to hear back from anyone who's watched this video about anything they've seen here and if they're interested in it. Take care. Have a great night.
All right. See you.